Hello, everyone. The Tax Terminator back with another interesting segment. I want to talk to you about the Caribbean, but it's not the Cayman Islands. It's not the Bahamas. It's not a Caribbean island that offers citizenship by investment. It's not the British Virgin Islands. It's another island that many of you know, that many of you love, but perhaps not many of you knew could be extremely tax friendly, if not tax free. So if you want to know how this big, beautiful island can be yours and help you optimize your taxes, stay tuned. So hello everyone, Tax Terminator here, and today I want to talk about an island that is very close to my heart, a place I love going to, and that is the Dominican Republic, the DR. I know many of you know this island, many of you find this island appealing and interesting. You know, many people that are watching this video doubtless know about places like La Romana, Cap Cana, Punta Cana, absolutely beautiful beaches, wonderful weather, beautiful island living. And listen, I absolutely love the DR, and the reason why is because, listen, I'm from Caracas, Venezuela. I grew up 30 minutes from the beach. I grew up with a yacht culture, a beach culture, warm weather, very, Catholic type culture. And that's something that I like. That's something that I personally enjoy. It's also a reason why I feel very comfortable and at home in Panama. And the DR is definitely an interesting place. In fact, it was the alternative country that I was looking at for potentially getting a second residence permit and potentially relocating. And I do think the DR will very shortly still come into my personal diversification plan, just in a different way. Panama will remain definitely my main hub, but the DR is going to have a very strong presence in my overall structure. So obviously weather is a big factor. The language is Spanish, so obviously my native language, I absolutely love it. And I think it is an easy language to learn if you're coming in from North America. So if you're a French speaker from Quebec, or if you're an English speaker from the other provinces of Canada or the US, I think you're going to find that the Spanish language is easy to learn and to adapt to if you're relocating there. I think that the Dominican Republic is also very interesting from an immigration perspective. You can get residence permits through a variety of ways. You know, we've had colleagues on this channel make videos about how easy it is to potentially relocate to the Dominican Republic. There's even a path to citizenship that is quite straightforward and quite fast track. So if you want to learn more about that, I would encourage you to check out those videos from my immigration colleagues. But ultimately, I want to focus on tax today because obviously as the tax terminator, I want to show you how the Dominican Republic could be a very interesting jurisdiction for you from a tax perspective if you want Caribbean island living and you want more of that Spanish Caribbean vibe, right? Something more similar to a Puerto Rico, a Panama, something more in that vibe, more salsa, merengue, reggaeton. So in the Dominican Republic, you have a semi-territorial tax system, similar to what you find in Uruguay, where some foreign source income is taxed and some foreign source income is not taxed. In the case of the DR, they really separate active income that is foreign sourced and then passive income that is foreign sourced. So basically, if you have active business operations outside the DR, if you travel to meet your clients, you have a permanent place of business outside of the DR, then you can essentially get tax-free income in that way. In addition to that, if you have a foreign business, like you have a foreign company in a place like, Panama or Uruguay or Costa Rica or maybe Singapore or Hong Kong or maybe even a US LLC, whatever is your preferred choice, you can essentially retain earnings in those foreign companies without having to pay tax in the DR until such a time that you're ready to distribute yourself out dividends. So that is also very, very positive. Also, when you become a tax resident of the DR, for the first 3 years, you get a full territorial tax system, meaning that for the first 3 years, you have a system more similar to that of Panama, where all income that is foreign sourced, regardless of it being active or passive, is not taxed in the DR. After those 3 years are up, so from the 4th year of tax residence onward, then you start being taxed on passive foreign income, mainly financial income, but you are still tax-free or tax-neutral in regards to foreign active income. So very powerful. So up to now, more or less, everyone is familiar with those kinds of benefits the DR can offer. The other benefit that I think many people overlook is the fact that in the DR, you have free zones. So similar to what I've told you about Uruguay, in the Dominican Republic, you have these wonderful free zones. You have to present a business project to DR authorities. You have to make sure that your plan is coherent with the level of investment you're planning to make. And in general, similar to Uruguay, the Dominican Republic focuses on these businesses exporting some kind of service to foreign clients. So you would be exporting a service that is consumed and taken advantage of outside of the DR. And as you can see, this starts being a pattern, right? So this is a condition for the Uruguayan free zones. It is also a condition to have some exempt income in Panama. Panama doesn't use the free zone system in the same way, but if you have a business operation that ultimately results in the export of services that are consumed and taken advantage of abroad, it can still generate tax-free income, even if done from Panamanian soil. So you see that these countries really use their territorial systems in very creative ways. So basically in the DR, the deal is you come in, you hire Dominicans. 80% of your staff has to be Dominican. And again, you have to be exporting a service. But if you meet all of those criteria, then your business operations in the DR are essentially tax-free. Now, unfortunately, unlike the case of Panama and unlike the case of Uruguay, it is not possible to get tax-free dividends from a Dominican company. So Dominican tax rules do state that while the company will pay zero corporate income tax, there is a small withholding tax rate of 10% on dividends distributed out from free zone companies. However, what I did find very interesting about the DR when I started working with the DR is that the DR is very open to also giving free zone status to branches of foreign companies. So let's say you're coming in with a Panamanian corporation, for example. As you guys know, I really think Panamanian companies are very strategic, very useful, and I really consider including them in many international structures and plans, especially if you're Latin America focused. So let's say you come in with a Panamanian company, or let's say a Uruguayan company. Those are tax neutral if operated outside of their respective countries of incorporation already. And let's say you establish a branch for that Panamanian or Uruguayan company in the DR. The DR will give that branch, that permanent establishment of that Uruguay or Panamanian company, tax-free status under the free zone, let's say, scope. And then the dividend rules will depend not on the branch, but on the overall home jurisdiction of the company. Meaning that when you take a look at whether or not dividends are taxable, you have to look at the Uruguayan rules and you have to look at the Panamanian rules. In both cases, if you have income that is not taxed at the corporate level, that does not generate the obligation to basically withhold taxes at the dividend level. Now, in Panama, there are certain other conditions that you have to meet. You have to make sure that you don't have an aviso de operaciones, so a notice of operations. So that's interesting to look at to see whether you would need one or not, a more careful analysis. But assuming that you're clear-cut offshore company, that you don't need a notice of operations, then tax-free dividends on the Panamanian side. In Uruguay, you can also get tax-free dividends if the company only generates foreign source income that is not taxable at the corporate level. You can mix that in with a DR branch and then essentially get an overall tax-free setup. So I think this is something that is rarely discussed, and I think this is something that should make the DR be on most people's maps. And I think it's also interesting to see what role the DR can play in a multi-jurisdictional structure. Imagine you're like me and you want to live in an exciting place like Panama City, very business-oriented, more, let's say, less island living in a way. But you also want to make sure that you've optimized your taxes. You can have your company HQ in Panama and then have a branch in the DR, which is a very short flight away. And that helps reconfirm and strengthen your status as tax-free business operations through that Panamanian company. If you're American, for example, and you want to keep things simple and you want to bring in a US LLC and you want that LLC to have a branch in the DR, have employees, have substance in the DR, and therefore, help internationalize your business operations, but you don't want to trigger tax obligations in another country, then definitely that DR free zone branch for that US LLC can be something very interesting. And if you mix this in with a lower cost of living, a Caribbean lifestyle, I think overall the DR is just very interesting to look at from an international tax perspective and definitely should be on your map. So next time you think about the Caribbean, it's not just the Bahamas, it's not just the Cayman Islands, it's not just the BVI, it's not just these islands that you frequently hear about, but it's also places like the DR with the right setup. I would also like to add that for personal tax residents, the DR applies essentially a simple days test. So if you want to have a business presence in the DR and you want to maybe spend some time per year there, but you keep it under 6 months, so under 193 days, you should be fine. You can spend time there as a visitor and not have to worry about triggering taxation, even if you have those business links to the Dominican Republic. If you are frequently flying back and forth from the US, for example, as you know, I have Miami as a major banking and business hub. So that proximity between the DR and Miami, if you're that kind of person like me who has that necessity to travel relatively frequently there, I think it is also a strategic jurisdiction to choose in that regard. So there you have it, folks. That's the Dominican Republic. That's how you can use the Dominican Republic in an exciting way. That's how you can optimize your taxes, potentially even close to zero, by using the DR as a strategic base. So if you found this information interesting, drop a comment down below. If you've been to the DR and you enjoy that country from a lifestyle perspective, drop a comment down below. If you want to know more about the DR and the Caribbean in general and how the Caribbean can be used to optimize your international tax strategies, then again, drop a comment down below. And I'll be more than happy to take a look at those and to address them in future videos. So until then, this was the Tax Terminator. I'll be back.